Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is a companion video. What are companion videos? Well, I'm glad that you asked. See, every day on the John Campea Show, Monday through Friday, we take the second half of the show to take the live comments and questions that you guys tip in. However, we don't always have enough time to get around to all those live questions, so we like to gather them up and get them addressed here as quickly as possible in companion videos. Now, we've had a few more than normal recently because we've been having some connection issues with YouTube. I've spoken to a YouTube rep about it. They're familiar. They know they're aware there is an issue of some sorts. So we've been having to cut the John Campea Show a little bit short lately. So we've piled on quite a few questions we need to get caught up on. So let's not waste any time and get right to it. This is being recorded on Sunday, January the 10th. So if that's when you're joining us, it's good to have you here, early bird. All right. Let's get right into it, shall we? We're going to start things off here with NGF Mike, who writes, "Hey, John, 2020 was the year that I was going to start my journey of filmmaking by making short films. Very cool. COVID obviously had other plans, sadly, yes. I want 2021 to be that year, but I'm a total novice to editing. Other than YouTube, what resources are there to learning editing?" That's one of two. Is there a second one? Yes, there it is. Also, I have Adobe Premiere, but I was wondering if I should shell out the money for Final Cut Pro since it is the industry standard. Well, okay, time out for a second. Final Cut is not the industry standard. All right, if you want to talk about the industry, you want to talk about the industry standard, then really today, I think you can probably still say like Avid is probably still like the industry standard, probably. You're starting to see a shift. More and more big time, prime time stuff is being done on things like Premiere, Final Cut, DaVinci as well. But so don't think for a second that Final Cut is the thing. Probably more YouTubers use Premiere probably than Final Cut Pro. I don't have any numbers in front of me to definitively say that for sure. But there is that. So Premiere is a great thing to do it on. Absolutely. And by the way, a lot of people are using DaVinci Resolve these days too. The fact that it's free, at least, you know, the standard option is free, is pretty good and very attractive to a lot of people. And I've played around with it a bit. I'm just so comfortable on Premiere that I'm having a hard time switching over. So I'm still on Premiere myself. I know a lot of people are still on Premiere. YouTube is a great place to get almost everything you need. There are a couple of other places. One that used to be really popular and isn't as popular now, but is still damn good is lynda.com. That's Lynda with a Y. Lynda.com. I believe it's now owned by LinkedIn, but it's got like really well produced, high quality tutorials on just about everything, but their Premiere and Adobe Suite stuff is all very, very good. So I personally think you can find just about everything you need on YouTube, but if you want a little bit something extra, I would say go and check out lynda.com. You do have to pay for it, but it's very reasonably priced. So anyway, yeah, I hope that helps you out, and good luck on your journey, NGF. I hope 2021 gives you better fortune in trying to get your film made than 2020 did. Okay, let's keep on going here. Next up is Luke Newcomb, who writes, "Hi, John. Happy New Year. Thank you so much. With this new Feige Star Wars news, I'm wondering which of these new Star Wars projects was supposed to be the new part of the Star Wars universe." I have no idea what you mean by that. Movie. "I, for one, can't wait for the new direction despite loving the original two trilogies." Yeah, I'm going to confess, Luke, I have no idea what you mean by new part of the Star Wars universe. I mean, they're all part of the new part of the Star Wars. I mean, I'm a little bit unclear what you're saying, but yeah, of course, the Kevin Feige Star Wars project. Kevin Feige is, of course, the president of Marvel Pictures. He's the head guy who runs all of the MCU. They announced, I believe it was as early as 2019. They announced back in 2019 that he was going to be developing a Star Wars film for Lucasfilm, which got everybody excited, and then we heard nothing about it. Then just the other day, we found out that that project is moving forward. Kevin Feige has tapped the writer of the Loki series and of Doctor Strange 2 to be the screenwriter for his new Star Wars movie. So clearly, other than that, we don't know anything about it. But listen, there's a lot of exciting things coming. Acolyte, I'm super excited about. A lot of people are very excited about the Ahsoka Tano show. The Cassian Andor show looks like it's going to be really good. Everybody's excited about Obi-Wan Kenobi. Rogue Squadron, which is supposed to be set in the future. I mean, there's a lot of things coming down the road. Then we got the Taika Waititi project as well, on top of all that, and now the Kevin Feige thing. So it's one thing to have a lot of stuff that sounds good. Let's see if the stuff starts turning out good. That'll be the key. But right now, it's definitely a very, very exciting time. All right. Charles Broder writes, Carell said The Office wouldn't work today because the climate's different. Yeah, and I disagree with him. I totally think it still would work. What's the movie that comes to your mind that worked then but wouldn't work now for the same reasons? Mine was Falling Down, but I think Russell Crowe... Yeah, I was going to say, Russell Crowe just remade that movie. I can't... What was it called again? The one that just came out, like it was one of the first ones that come out during the pandemic, and I can't remember the name of it now, but somebody else... For those of you who missed it, Steve Carell was recently asked, do you think The Office could have worked today if it just came out today? He doesn't think so. I completely disagree with him. I think when you look at The Office and the way the humor in The Office was handled, I think it would totally work today still. Yes, even though it's a little bit of a different climate, I totally believe it would still work. And be incredibly popular and all that kind of stuff. So I disagree with Carell on that. But somebody else asked me about this the other day, and I'll tell you the same movie that I said then, Blazing Saddles. The Mel Brooks Western comedy, one of the greatest comedies of all time. The stuff they pull in that movie, I don't know if a lot of people would have the testicular fortitude to try to go ahead and do that movie today. That's a movie that probably wouldn't get greenlit today. That's one that probably wouldn't get greenlit today. Anyway, thanks for asking, Charles. All right, next up, we got Jaron Morris who writes, John, not sure last night if you saw Ashley Johnson, the girl who does the voice of Ellie, of course, in The Last of Us, posted a picture on her Twitter, and it was a picture of a guitar with the number 3 in the headline. 20 minutes later, it was taken down, and she posted, sorry, LOL. Did she kind of confirm Last of Us 3? Well, look, let's be honest here. Is there any sentient being on the planet right now that doesn't believe that Last of Us 3 is coming? Of course there's going to be... Nope, this is not a surprise. Everybody... Listen, you do Last of Us 1, huge hit, wins all sorts of awards, and you get Last of Us 2, huge hit, wins all the awards, including Game of the Year again. There's no doubt. There isn't a micron of doubt that we're going to get Last of Us 3. Now, whether this was her actually pronouncing, the reality is a lot of times, even in movies, actors are the last people to know. I know that's not what we, the audience and fans, think, but a lot of the times the actors are the absolute last people to know. So maybe that was just her saying, come on, guys, let's get to number 3. But listen, again, we all know there's going to be a Last of Us 3, especially, I mean, not, forget the fact that it just won Game of the Year. We've got an HBO series coming out for Last of Us. I mean, it's a no-brainer there's going to be Last of Us 3. So whatever Ashley Johnson does or does not post is probably relevant. Because like I said, she's probably going to be the last person in the world to actually know. All right, Adam K. writes, do you feel Vader is the best villain in cinematic history, mostly due to his redemption arc? No. Can you expand on what makes him the greatest of time? It's GOAT, G-O-A-T, greatest of all time of villains. Would you feel the same without the redemption? Do the prequels raise or lower his image? No, listen, because he was pretty much the de facto, he kind of became the greatest screen villain of all time before Return of the Jedi ever happened. Like, Darth Vader became like a pop culture juggernaut that kind of, became the de facto greatest villain of all time before the redemption arc ever came into play. Now, the redemption arc gives a great ending to the movie, but there's this odd thing that you can't quantify. It was this weird mixture of the design of the character, the voice of James Earl Jones, the way Vader portrayed himself, all that kind of stuff. Not a lot of dialogue, the less is more kind of approach. And all that. I mean, maybe it's the fact that we didn't see his face. I think it was a perfect storm of things. There's no one thing. I was on a panel a couple of years ago talking about Star Wars and villains and Vader, saying, somebody asked, like, what is the thing that makes Vader great? And the thing is, there is no one thing. It is the combination of a lot of little things that became this perfect storm. And I believe it's all equal part. The voice of James Earl Jones, the design of the costume, the character himself, all of these different things with the narrative within the context of Star Wars itself. And so I would argue that he kind of became the greatest cinematic villain ever, long before Jedi and the redemption arc was ever there. So that's kind of my take on that. All right, next up, Mike Riff writes, one of two. Love the show. Thank you so much, Mike. Appreciate that. Documentary was amazing. Oh, thank you, man. Hey, that gives me an excuse. You just gave me a great excuse to do a little plug. Of course, when he says the documentary, he's talking about my documentary that I just spent the last year making, and we put out right at the end of 2020. It's called Movie Trailers, A Love Story. It is a documentary about movie trailers, the history of trailers. Where did they come from? How did they get started? Why are they what are some of the big major turning points in trailer history leading up to present day? And why are they the things that they are today? And anyway, that trailer, that movie is now out. You can get it wherever you live, worldwide, whatever country you live in. You can get it at vimeo.com/on-demand/movie trailers. And if you happen to live in the US or the UK, you have another option also of watching it on Amazon. You can simply go to Amazon and search for Movie Trailers, A Love Story, and you should find it there. And thank you so much, Mike, for giving me an excuse to plug my movie again. Okay, let's keep going. Documentary was amazing. Thank you so much for watching it. On the topic of Black Panther, an idea I had was, keeping with the idea that T'Challa has died, is that Wakanda comes together as a whole, keeping with the theme of families coming together after hardship. That was one of two. By overcoming the hardships and becoming one whole family, uniting all the tribes together, Wakanda adopts the idea of we are Black Panther instead of adopting a special individual. No. There's a couple of reasons why I don't see that working. Number one, Wakanda has lost kings and leaders and Black Panthers before. This isn't the first time they lost a Black Panther or the first time that they lost a king. However, they decide to set it up in Black Panther 2. This isn't the first time. It's happened many, 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 many times and will happen more times again. Not to mention, T'Challa will probably be one of the shortest reigning Black Panthers in the history of Wakanda in the MCU, really, because remember, there was a 5-year span where he was gone. He had really just become king. And then he was gone for 5 years. And then he's back. And then we don't know how long he was back for before they say they lose T'Challa again. So there's that. Secondly, the absolute unity of Wakanda has never been in question. The only outstanding thing has been the Jambari tribe under M'Baku, who have kind of lived their own existence sort of as a separate part of Wakanda. But that's been the only thing that has ever been like the slightest hint of lack of unity within the various tribes of Wakanda. And of course, Black Panther, the movie, heals that. You know, by the end, M'Baku and T'Challa are brothers and they bring it all back together again. So yeah, it would, number one, they've lost many Black Panthers before. Number two, T'Challa wasn't even a very long lasting Black Panther nor king. Number three, there's never been any suggestion in any of the MCU material that Wakanda was anything other than completely unified already. The one minor exception is the Jambari tribe, but that was already kind of fixed. So I don't see them that being the way they would go. I don't see that the way they're going, but you never know. Anything's possible. All right. Jorge Souza writes, this may be a stretch, but maybe John Watts is directing Fantastic Four because Peyton Reed is directing Star Wars for Feige. Well, that's making a huge assumption. Of course, Peyton Reed, who is the director of Ant-Man 1 and 2 and directed maybe my two favorite episodes. Well, at least two of my favorite episodes of Mandalorian this season. He, of course, directed the finale with Luke Skywalker, and he directed the Ice Spiders one, which I know a lot of people didn't really like. I loved that episode, but whatever. There was some theory that, hey, Peyton Reed, you know, being a Fantastic Four nerd, he would probably be a pretty good choice. I predicted, I didn't know. I said, I guess if it would be anybody, maybe Peyton Reed would direct Fantastic Four. But the question is like, maybe the reasons Watts is doing it is because Reed's busy. That's assuming they were ever going to use Peyton Reed. That's assuming they were ever going to use Peyton Reed. There was nothing other than fans like myself, speculation that maybe Peyton Reed would be a good fit for it. But to assume like, oh, it's Watts is doing it because Peyton Reed's busy. Well, who says Peyton Reed would be directing it if it wasn't John Watts? Of course, John Watts, who directed Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man Far From Home and the upcoming Spider-Man 3. I think he'll do a great job with the Fantastic Four. But I think they chose Watts because Watts was their guy. I think they just decided that Watts was the right fit. And again, to assume that he only got it because Peyton Reed might be busy, that's making a completely unsubstantiated assumption that they were going to go with Reed. There's nothing that suggests they were going to use Peyton Reed ever. So I think Watts got it because Watts got it. I think Watts got it because they wanted to go that way, because they think his particular style may fit what they want to do with Fantastic Four a little bit better. And who knows, maybe Peyton Reed wasn't even in the top 5 of their choices. Not to mention, I'm sure that Kevin Feige let maybe a couple of directors know, hey, we're looking at a couple of you to maybe direct Fantastic Four. Meet with me in 2 months and give me your pitch. And maybe Watts just had the best pitch. So yeah, I wouldn't assume, Jorge, that Reed was going to get it in the first place. So got to keep that in mind. All right. But I think Watts is going to do a great job with Fantastic Four. Very excited about seeing that. All right. Next up, Cecil, aka Dan the Jerk, writes, John, just go full Bob Ross with the hair #release. What he's talking about, my hair, is that I have not cut my hair in months. My hair right now is the longest that it's been in over 10 years. My hair right now is the absolute longest. When it's kind of laying flat like this, you can't really tell, but my hair right now is the longest it has been in well over a decade. Well over a decade. My wife wants me to grow it out. She wants me to continue to grow it back when I was in my band days and I had hair down to here. I know it's true. I used to have like hair down to here. I'd pull it back, put it in the Bono ponytail sort of thing. Oh, I did. But it's been forever. I want to cut it badly, but my wife wants me to continue to growing it. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see who wins, Cecil. All right. Next up, Scotty writes, with Star Wars canon being so up in the air, how do you view the uncohesive sequels? Are they still as valid as the embarrassing Uncle prequels? Or do you think folks making Mando might find a way to overwrite them? No, they'll never overwrite them. Just like they'll never overwrite the prequels. The prequels happened. Deal with it. And I say that as somebody who really dislikes the prequels. I think they're the worst Star Wars movies ever made. I think they're the worst Star Wars anything other than the Christmas special. I think they're the worst Star Wars things ever made. But you don't touch them. They happened. I may not like what happened in them, but they did happen. And therefore, that is canon. To me, that is Star Wars history. And as much as I hate the prequels, I will fight to the symbolic death to protect them as canon. They happened. They're real. We don't touch them. Not to mention, it takes away from the fact that while I may hate the prequels, there are a lot of people who love the prequels. There are people who really like the prequels. That's unimaginable to me, but it's true. There are a lot of people who really like the prequels. Don't touch them. Leave them alone. You made them. You put them out. You let fans have it. Some of us hated it, but some loved it. But they happened. Leave them alone. Same thing goes for the sequel trilogy. A lot of people love the sequel trilogy. I mean, all you got to do is go look at the audience ratings, the fan ratings. There's a lot of people who dislike them, but there's a lot of people who love them. But regardless, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that I love The Force Awakens. It doesn't matter that I hated The Rise of Skywalker. It makes no difference. They happened. They're canon. It's done. Now you move on. And not to mention, you have to protect the fans who did love them. And there are fans who love them all. So whatever. So I see it very much the same way. You know, the prequel trilogy, the sequel trilogy. By the way, again, I may have hated The Rise of Skywalker, and I did hate that movie. But The Force Awakens was fan-effing-tastic. Force Awakens was fantastic. I'll argue anybody with that. The Force Awakens was fantastic. And to this day, Avengers Endgame is not the #1 U.S. box office movie of all time. It's not. It is worldwide, and that's the important one. But the #1 all-time U.S. box office movie is Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Not that that means it's quality, but, I love it. I think it's fantastic. But again, original trilogy, prequel trilogy, sequel trilogy. It don't matter how much you like or dislike any of them. They happened. It don't matter how much I like or dislike certain ones. They happened. They're canon. You just leave it alone. And there's no reason why other Star Wars things have to write over the prequels or write over the sequels. Just tell your own good stories. That's all you got to do. And you move on. And that will be what they do. All right. Anyway, thanks for that, Scotty. NGF Mike writes, the age-old adage in writing is write what you know. I don't necessarily agree with that. Horror isn't generally my bag, but I've been finding myself wanting to write horror screenplays rather than action or drama genres I know very well. Well, no. That write what you know has nothing to do with genre you're writing. Because listen, you've never lived an action film. I'm just going to go out on a limb and guess you have never been a secret undercover spy for a government that is on a race against time to stop a madman from Chechnya, I don't know, from detonating, an explosives cache underneath an orphanage somewhere in Lithuania. I'm just going to guess that has never happened to you. So you don't know action, but that's not what it means. Writing what you know is a statement that goes beyond what genre you write. It's when you write a horror or you write an action, do you know this character you're writing? You know what I mean? Do you know this character you're writing? Do you know this particular conflict between two characters? It's basically what it's saying is, listen, don't write a movie about your recent trip to 7-Eleven and you ended up buying 3 lotto tickets instead of 2 and still didn't win anything. Writing what you know is not about writing what you did. It's about drawing on the things you are familiar with and bringing them into your world. And so that, I believe, applies to any genre you want to do, whether it's sci-fi, futuristic epic, action, drama, period piece, drama, or horror. You can draw on what you know and bring those things into what it is you're trying to write out. And I think that's what it means, NGF. That's how I interpret what it means. It's regardless of genre. All right. Jaron Morris writes, in Norse mythology, lore, Loki witnessed the start of Ragnarok from the beginning with the death of Baldur, the god of beauty, to the end, and played a major role in it. Even though it's a event Ragnarok, I truly believe that can say Kratos is Ragnarok. He killed Baldur, and that was the first step. Ragnarok, also his son Arthas, was where we find out his real name. Of course, his real name is Loki. Find out his real name soon, and with the death of Baldur, who brought the long winter, as you see in the game, thought. I don't know what I don't know what it is you're talking about. Like, are you saying you think this is something they could bring into the MCU, or are you suggesting this is the direction they could go in for a God of War 2? I know the naming conventions of God of War is because we had God of War and God of War this, and then all of a sudden it's just God of War again, but whatever. In the next God of War, are you suggesting this is an avenue they could go in the next God of War game? Well, sure. I mean, listen, the ending little twist of God of War was fantastic when they reveal the true identity of his son, right? That was amazing. I remember I'm sitting there watching that. I'm like, oh, like when they reveal that the kid is Loki, and that was amazing. So there are definitely, you definitely pick up on that. You definitely pick up on that. Now, whether you go Ragnarok or not, I don't know. I mean, honestly, while it is totally open public domain, you can use Ragnarok if you want. It doesn't matter. But the reality is, in big mainstream pop culture, especially recent big mainstream pop culture, Ragnarok is already associated with the MCU. So I would think that they should probably, even though they'd be totally fine to use it if they want, because it is public domain, I think it would serve them much better to not just already go on it when it was just done with Thor. You know what I mean? So my guess would be but I'm dying to see what they do next, because that ending was amazing. That ending was so good. All right. Thanks for that, Jaron. Next up, a vesticular fortitude. And of course, I just recently said testicular fortitude. That's a little Mankind thing there. Mick Foley thing. A longtime fan since the AMC days. Thank you so much, man. Did anyone think that Wonder Woman 84 was set during the New Year's time? Explains fireworks and staying warm comments. Thanks, and bring on the filthy. Well, I don't know. It wasn't New Year's time because there was no know. And this wasn't in California. And we just saw, Barbara and Diana having lunch on an outdoor patio on a beautiful sunny day. So no, I do not think it doesn't make any sense that they would say that was New Year's time, because it would definitely be a lot colder. There would be snow on the ground, all that kind of stuff there. So no, they probably didn't do that, but it still relieves that one question hanging in the air, man. You're right. All right. Mike Riff writes, with Hamada announcing they will recast Batfleck's iteration of Batman, what do you think the chances are that they use Affleck's script he wrote for one of the movies? 0, unfortunately. Also, what do you think is the chances Affleck ends up directing the recast Batman? Also 0. Everything that we're hearing so far, now I don't know that for sure. You just asked me what I think. That's what I think. But everything we're hearing since the announcement that Ben would be coming back to play Bruce one more time in The Flash is that it's a farewell. It's a closure that Ben never got to have with the Batman character. But from everything I'm hearing, this is it. Like all these rumors about Ben's going to come back and play Batman in an HBO thing, everything I understand, that's total bullshit. These are just made up lies and rumors being passed around, all that kind of stuff. So, but listen, again, let me emphasize this. I say that as a fan, giving you my opinion based on the actual things I've seen. I did not get a phone call from Walter Hamada yesterday. It says, John, let your readers know. That's not it at all. I'm simply giving you my opinion based on what I see. But everything I have seen from legitimate sources, not the BS rumors that float around everywhere, is that this is the last thing we're going to see from Ben. And that, unfortunately, that Ben Affleck script isn't going to go anywhere, which really sucks, because we heard somebody else very tightly connected with the whole DC realm who's read a lot of Batman scripts. Somebody plugged in at Warner Brothers say that Ben Affleck's Batman script was the best Batman script ever written. And I have no reason to doubt that. So it's a total shame if that never gets made, but no, I don't think they're just going to use that. I think Ben wrote that because he was going to direct it. And I think he's done with Batman. So other than whatever he does or doesn't do in The Flash, but I think that is his swan song. But I hope, Mike, I'll keep my fingers crossed. I would love to see it. All right. Fidel Riaz writes, hey, John, hope you're doing well. I am doing well. Thank you so much. So to fill my craving of theater popcorn, I've been buying Cinemark's to-go popcorn bag every 2 weeks or so, and it was the best part of watching movies at home. I definitely recommend treating yourself. Yeah, so I miss watching the movies in theaters badly. I miss it so very, very, very much. And of course, you guys have heard me tell the story on the show that when I go to the movies, I never eat popcorn any other time, but when I go to the movies, I always got to get my popcorn. I know that there are a number of theaters, to make a little bit of income and maybe to stain people's minds, have been selling their own movie popcorn to go. You just go to the theater and you pick up popcorn and take it home. But I don't know, it's not the same thing to me. It's not. If you've been doing it and enjoying it, that's awesome. That is great. But I think for me, it is part of that whole thing of going into the theater with the crowd rustling around, excitement brewing in the air of going in to see these movies they've been looking forward to watching, and getting in a line, grabbing that hot bag of popcorn and a soda, and then walking in. It's just a part of the ritual, if you will. It's part of the ritual, and I don't think just bringing home a bag of popcorn would replicate that for me, but that's only me. I think it would work for some other people, and clearly it works for you, and that's awesome. Thanks for the recommendation, though, Fidel. All right, next up, we've got Fidel Rios also writes, John, a few years ago, I watched Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me in cinemas. As a big fan of the show, experiencing the film for the first time with other fans in a screening was such a great experience. This is part of why I love re-releases. I miss cinemas. Oh, dude, I miss cinemas so much. There's nothing like it. Like I think I've said every year, but it's probably closer to every 2 years or so. Ann and I will find a theater somewhere that's doing a screening of Princess Bride, right? I still remember the first time we did this about 5 or 6 years ago. And I had seen Princess Bride. It's probably not an exaggeration to say 40 or 50 times I've seen Princess Bride. It's one of those movies that is one of the reasons you love movies, you know? But watching it in a movie theater with an audience, it's just such a better experience. I mean, it was unlike anything I had experienced like with Princess Bride ever before. It was a total amazing experience. It was a total amazing memory to be there with an audience when Andre says, "Anybody want a peanut?" and you're laughing with 200 other strangers and whatever. And when the first time he says, "You kill my father," and then hear everybody in the audience going at the same time, "Prepare to die." I mean, there's something so intangible about that, yeah, I mean, watching movies at home is great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not ditching on watching movies at home. Watching movies at home is great. It is. It's great. But it ain't the movie theater. It ain't the movie theater. It ain't being in that room with other fans and having that communal, joint, massive experience on a real big screen, not your crappy little 75-inch TV, you know, and it's just, there's nothing like it. And I miss it badly, man. I miss it so badly. All right. Luke, I am your plumber writes, one of two. I'm going to mention something that I've never heard anyone mention before about Avengers Endgame and Star Wars. First, in Avengers Endgame, did you find it weird that Tony was washing dishes by hand, not even using a dishwasher? If I was Tony, I would have created an instant dish clean. Just saying. And in Star Wars, the first time you see Princess Leia, she was with R2-D2, no one else around. And in Rise of Skywalker, when she passes away, it was just her and R2-D2, no one else, which I thought was pretty cool. You know what? I never thought of that. I mean, the Tony thing, they're at a cottage, they're at a cabin. Maybe Pepper wants it kept, you know, old school at the cottage. I could see that being it. So I don't really worry about that. But the Leia with R2 thing, you know what? That's a terrific observation. I've never even thought about that. That you're right. The very first time we say Leia on screen, it is when she's crouching down to feed the info into R2. So she's on screen with R2. And then in her last, if I remember correctly, she's with R2 as well. I think you're right. I mean, maybe you're wrong about that, but I think you're right. Anyway, if you are right about that, and I can't say for sure that I can't confirm that you're right, but if you are right about that, that's a really good observation, because that's something that would have just gone over my head. Anyway, nice catch on that, man. Nice catch. All right, next up, Tony T writes, so I have recently decided to go back and watch all of David Fincher's movies. Nice. And I have to say that I was really surprised by Gone Girl. It's amazing. It's so good. Fantastic movie. Thought I wasn't a fan, although I wasn't a fan of the ending, I was. Thoughts on Gone Girl? Listen, I still remember when Gone Girl came out, it was, I can't remember who the third couple was, but it was me and my wife, Anne, and John Schnepp and Holly. And there was a third couple that went with us, and I cannot remember who the third couple was. But if you guys haven't seen Gone Girl, directed by David Fincher, stars Ben Affleck, Rosamund Pike. Tyler Perry is in it, by the way. And I've never liked Tyler Perry as much as I liked him in this movie. Tyler Perry was great in this movie. Anyway, I remember we all saw it at the AMC Burbank 16. And we all came out of the theater, and all the guys were like, haha, it's a good thing the women in our lives aren't like that, right? And we just look over and the women are just looking at us a little weird. And I thought the ending was fantastic. I ate up everything about this movie. I ate up absolutely everything about this movie. I thought the acting was bang. Rosamund Pike, I can't remember if she got an Academy Award nomination for this or not. I don't think she did. She should have. Let me take a look here. Where's the awards tab? Is there? Yeah, there's the awards tab. I just double checked this. Oh, she did. Rosamund Pike shows the one Academy Award nomination it got. Rosamund Pike did get nominated for Best Supporting Actress for it, and deservedly so. She was great in it. Affleck was great in it. Tyler Perry was great in it. Neil Patrick Harris, I believe, was in it too. Yeah, there's Neil Patrick Harris. Neil Patrick Harris was great in it. It's a fabulous movie. It is absolutely fantastic. If you have not seen Gone Girl, do go and watch Gone Girl. It's incredible. I'm glad you liked it, Tony. All right, next up. Sergeant Ward writes, "Hey, John. Regarding Feige's Star Wars movie, what would you think it's going to be about, or what would you like it to be about? Maybe Feige's passionate about a certain known period or story set in Star Wars. Do you think he'll hire an MCU director to helm it?" As far as what I think it'll be about, no idea. What do I want it to be about? Don't care. Like, you guys know I've kind of adopted this. I wasn't always like this, but I've adopted this thing of I don't like to make up in my head what I think the directors or writers should make their movies about. I think that's bad to do. So I'm kind of in a place of just show me the movie you want to make, man. You just go. You make your movie and then you present us your movie. Don't listen to me or anybody else about what it should be about or what characters you should have in it or it's got to be this. Or ignore everybody. You go make your movie. And if it's great, great. And if it's not, okay. But you go make your movie. That's kind of my attitude. So I don't care what he makes it about. I really don't. Just I want him to do whatever he's passionate about. As far as whether or not I think he'll hire an MCU director to do it, ultimately that'll be Kathy Kennedy's decision. But I also believe Kathy Kennedy will probably let Kevin Feige decide who he wants. I mean, like I said, whoever Kevin Feige wants, Kathy Kennedy as the head of Lucasfilm will have to. I mean, I know everybody's like, no, Kevin Feige doesn't have to do anything. Kathy Kennedy's. Yo, yes, yeah, he does. If he's making a Star Wars movie, he does. Sorry, you can whine and bitch and complain about that all you want all day. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change it. She's still the head of Lucasfilm. Whoever he would like to direct the film, Kathy will have to rubber stamp and say, okay. But I have a feeling she'll probably give him whatever director he wants. My guess is he'll probably give him whatever, or she'll allow him to pick whoever he wants. And unless there's somebody that causes real problems or has real red flags, I think she'll probably let him do it. That being the case, I don't think there's any reason to believe he wouldn't hire an existing MCU. There are a lot of directors who have directed MCU movies. He's clearly, for the writing part of it, he's turned to an MCU writer. So, I mean, he just got the writer of the Loki series and Doctor Strange 2. So if he's going to do that, I don't see there being any reason to believe he wouldn't go to an MCU director. I don't think it'll be the Russo brothers. They're trying to do their own thing right now, trying to make their own identity. But yeah, I could totally see him. Maybe, hey, listen, maybe Peyton Reed. Peyton Reed has made some big movies for him. Peyton Reed just directed probably the most celebrated episode of Mandalorian yet with that whole Luke Skywalker episode. So maybe it'll be Peyton Reed. But yeah, I would put the over-under number at 75%. I believe that there's a 75% chance that he hires an MCU director or a director who has at least done some MCU stuff before, which still leaves about a good 25% that maybe he goes outside of that. But yeah, if he just hired somebody who is an MCU writer, why not director? I think he totally will. All right, Sang writes, today's Kevin Feige news got me thinking, will Lucasfilm ever do an Old Republic film or trilogy? This is a question that comes up at least 5 times a week. There are a lot of stories and characters to potentially adopt. Seems like a huge opportunity and potential easy win if done right. I mean, Revan, come on. Here's the thing though, Sang. Nothing is an easy win. Nothing is an easy win. One of the biggest problems with us as film fans, and we have all been guilty of this, myself included, is we too often convince ourselves making a good movie is easy. It's not. It's Herculean. Making a movie that's good, that appeals to a lot of people and people enjoy and can be successful, that is, it's astronomical to do that. It's very, very hard to do it. And something I've been talking about lately is premise doesn't mean anything. I've seen movies made on the best premises turn out terrible. I've seen movies made on the most ridiculous, silly premises turn out to be some of my favorite films of all time. Making an Old Republic thing in no way, shape, or form gives it any better or worse of a chance of anything else being good. It just doesn't. It's all about execution. It's all about execution. I believe the premise, The bare bones story outline of the prequels are fantastic, but they were executed very badly, in my opinion, and turn out to be horrible. Again, in my opinion. You take the Lego movie. Well, who the hell thought to make a movie about plastic building blocks? Really? Really? But the execution was incredible. And they made something charming and memorable and entertaining that we still talk about today, that first Lego movie. It's all about execution. And that's when I started to come up with the whole idea of Felipe the Sentient Dancing Microphone. I mean, you have the right script with the right director and storyteller with the right angle. You can make a movie about Felipe the Sentient Dancing Microphone and it could be an Oscar winner. You may think that sounds silly, but it's true. But again, I think the Old Republic represents a beautiful thing, not because of the existing stories. I love the idea of them going to the Old Republic because it's a time period and an era so far removed from the original trilogy that you literally have a blank page that a great filmmaker or team of filmmakers can step in and really tell whatever story they want in that setting. To me, the Old Republic's strength is the setting of the Old Republic. There are some great legend stories and things like that. Yeah. I'm not discounting that. But to me, the true strength of the Old Republic is the setting. So I'm not looking for Lucasfilm personally to go in there and tell that legend story and make it canon. No. I would just like them to say, go to that time period. Use that setting. Because it gives you a lot of freedom and a lot of opportunities to tell like a really cool story or a really bad one nonetheless. But yes, I believe absolutely they are going to go Old Republic sooner or later. They might already have something in mind for Old Republic. Who knows? There's some whispers that the Taika Waititi project may be in the Old Republic. They were already talking about how D&D, the Game of Thrones guys, the movies they were going to make was going to be set in the Old Republic. So clearly Old Republic is something Kathy Kennedy already has circled. I think it's just a matter of time before they go there. And I'm very excited for when they do. I'm very, very excited for when they do saying. All right, next up. Matthew writes, "Hey, John. First time writing in. Thank you for writing in, Matthew. Appreciate that, man. With DC planning to make 2 films for HBO Max each year, is there any DC characters you would like to see get their own film? Batgirl and Static Shock are amazing choices if they come to fruition. And it doesn't matter. I don't care. I don't care. I mean, everybody that I would really want to see done has been done or is being done. There are still many great potential characters, but again, just like the setting, it doesn't matter what character you pick. You could come up with the dumbest character ever from that DC has ever been on the pages of DC Comics. You could literally come up with the worst character that has ever been on the pages of DC Comics, and you can make the best DCU movie ever out of it. So, I don't know, but those types of characters, Batgirl, Static Shock, these are the types of characters that would be perfect to do HBO Max things with. While they save the heavier stuff, the bigger guns, for things like theatrical, which, they're saying up to 4 major films a year, 2 films for HBO Max. And they've already said, that is what Hamada said. It'll be for our smaller, lesser known properties, smaller budget stuff. And I think those are perfect avenues. And you know what else? I've said for a long time, and I've been right up until now, that they're not going to do a Batman Beyond. I've been told for so many years, they're going to do one any minute now, John. I keep saying, no, they're not. And here we are now in 2021, and they still haven't. But I'll tell you what, with this whole idea of taking lesser known, smaller budget projects and giving them their own thing on HBO Max, that could be the opening for Batman Beyond. Right there. Mark this down. This is what is this again? This is January 10th. This is where I'm telling you, I think this is the opportunity for them to do a Batman Beyond. I don't think the opportunities existed before now, and it hasn't, because here we are in 2021. Turns out I was right. They never did do a Batman Beyond. But now, with Walter Hamada talking about this new avenue to take lesser known characters with smaller budgets and give them a place to come into being on the screen, being HBO Max, 2 projects a year, that could be the opening for Batman Beyond. That could be the opening. I thought for a long time Batman Beyond was an utter absurdity to try because, nobody cares about a non-Bruce Wayne Batman. I mean, you and your circle of friends may know, Batman Beyond, but the reality is 95% of the general movie-going public don't, and they don't care about Batman that's not Bruce Wayne, and all this kind of stuff. But the moment Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse came out, that, I think, breathed life into the idea of maybe doing a Batman Beyond someday. Because while they are two different situations, yes, traditionally your Peter Parker is Spider-Man, not Miles Morales. And granted, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse did not exactly explode at the box office, but it made okay money. It made 300 plus million, which is not bad. More importantly, it was a fantastic film. Best comic book movie of the year. And that was a year that Black Panther and Infinity War came out. And I am telling you that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was the best comic book movie that year. I often say if that was not the year of T'Challa, that was the year of Miles Morales, at any rate. And I think that started to give some life to the notion, or to the fans that really wanted a Batman Beyond. I think Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I think if Batman Beyond ever does happen, Batman Beyond fans should thank whatever God they worship for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, because I am absolutely convinced that's the one that cracked the door open for the possibility of a Batman Beyond. And now with Walter Hamada saying that we're going to create an avenue for these smaller, lesser-known characters with smaller budgets to give them a place to have a life, HBO Max, I think that's their opening. I think that is the opening for Batman Beyond. And then you can see what happens. If, like, everybody in the fan community, in the movie fan community gets on board with it, maybe it could lead to bigger things. If it stays relatively small, as I suspect it would, then maybe you just keep it on HBO Max, or maybe it gets a one and done or a two and done, whatever. At least it gets a shot. And I think this HBO Max thing is the thing that's going to give it a shot. All right, let's see here. Jameel B writes, thanks for that, Matthew, by the way. Jameel B writes, hey, John and crew, I'd like to throw you two hypothetical questions, if you will. Number one, supposedly a young Bruce Wayne is alive in Wonder Woman 84. Theoretically, he should be. What do you think he might have wished for? Two, what if Boba Fett had joined the boarding and interacted with Luke? Well, we've covered both of those questions before. Obviously, I think what Bruce would have wished for was to get his parents back. I mean, that is the one thing that has been the guiding North Star, if you will. Everything about Batman has all been motivated and predicated on the loss of his parents. Clearly, if Bruce Wayne was awake when all this was going on and wasn't taking nappy time somewhere, he's wishing to get, Martha and Thomas Wayne back. I think that's without question. With Boba Fett, yeah, they clearly needed to come up with a mechanism to not have Boba Fett on the ship. Boba Fett could not be on the ship when Luke comes in, because then that brings in a whole nother piece of drama, because obviously Luke was present when Boba Fett got tossed into the Sarlacc. He was fighting Luke, and what was going on? He was firing at Luke when he got hit in the back and knocked into the Sarlacc pit. So then that would create, and that would have been a distraction. If they had that scene, think about that. If they had that scene on the bridge of Gideon's ship, that emotionally powerful scene, he wants your permission, all that kind of, I will give my life to protect the child, and all kind of stuff. All of that would have been distracted from if you had Boba Fett on the deck going, you, and then the two of them having a little thing. That would have taken away from the power and the beauty of that moment. So what Favreau had to do was come up with a reason why Boba Fett couldn't be on that ship. And I believe that's part of the reason why they wrote the whole, Slave One attacking the cruiser and then taking off into hyperspace again. I think that's part of the whole reason they set that up, because you didn't want to have a distraction from the moment that they had on that bridge. So I think that was a very, very intelligent thing that they did for that. All right. Thanks for that, Jameel. Next up, Slim Kim writes, one of two. I was doing some research on Kang. That's Kang the Conqueror, who's going to be played by the lead guy from Lovecraft Country. I cannot wait for that. He's going to be in Ant-Man 3. He's a time traveler, a genius, skilled in hand-to-hand combat, access to advanced technology, radiation-proof enhanced strength, and able to control all technology, and a will-swapping ray gun. I don't know how the hell Ant-Man is going to deal with him. Well, there's a couple things to keep in mind here. Number one, I think there are a lot of big villains in comic books that you think in the movies, how the hell will they deal with this? Like, I'm sorry, Apocalypse was in that X-Men movie. How the hell are the X-Men supposed to compete against Apocalypse? But, I mean, you can have that every time. The second thing to keep in mind is this. The comics are the comics. The movies are the movies. Right now, we don't know how much of that is going to be brought over from the comics into the movies. There's always big differences between the comics and the movies. So just because you read of, and by the way, there are different iterations, as there have been different iterations of Kang. And they're not always consistent with each other, right? So we will have to see how much of that, of the comic book Kang gets brought onto the big screen with Kang. It is most likely not going to be all of that. I think the time traveling one is the most key factor there that they're going to use, but we'll have to see which one they do. So right now, it's a great question. How on earth is Ant-Man supposed to deal with Kang? The bigger question, but it is a question, but more importantly about that big question is, it's a question we should ask after we see a trailer and we start to get a sense of what is this Kang like. Let's not try to compare with how will the movie Ant-Man deal with the comic book version of Kang. Let's wait till we get a better idea about what Kang's going to be, because there are always differences. There are always differences. And who's to say that Ant-Man's going to be alone? Some people theorizing that while there is a Fantastic Four movie coming, that Ant-Man 3 might be the place they introduce the first family of comic books. Just saying. I'm not saying that's true. I'm just saying he may not be facing it himself. It may not just be him and Wasp. So, yeah, well, let's see. Let's see what happens there, Slim Kim. All right, next up. Ryan Lohner writes, there is no way in hell I was going to set a foot in a movie theater again without the vaccine. Yeah, I know. I'm not a real movie fan. No, not at all. Hey, listen, you got to make decisions for you. When there's a pandemic going on, nothing dictates whether you're a real movie fan or not. Okay, that's not a thing. Luckily, I was in the first eligible group along with everyone else in my family, one way or another. So I just got, oh, that's amazing. Congratulations. I know a couple people because they work in the health field that have gotten their vaccinations already. President-elect Biden has just laid out that he wants 100 million vaccinations in his first 100 days. In his first 100 days. That means by mid-May, we should have like 100 million vaccinations out there, which would be a major blow to the pandemic. Huge blow to the pandemic, which would be amazing. Now, politicians say a lot of things that they want to do, and then what they're actually able to carry out are sometimes different, but here's hoping. So that's great, Ryan. And I'm glad that you've got that, and maybe you'll feel, actually, now that you've got the vaccine, do you now feel more comfortable going to the movie theaters? I'd be curious to know if you are or not. Let us know, man. All right, thanks for sharing that, dude. All right, Dave W. writes, hey, John, love your show. Thank you so much, Dave. I recently did a sort of prediction of DCEU's future in my head. I started to think the DCU built from 2013's Man of Steel is slowly getting its closure. Well, I mean, I don't know about that. There was a very big opportunity for the DCEU to just reboot the DCEU, and that was a number of years ago. They instead decided to plow forward with it. And it's not the choice I would have made, but there was upside to it, and they've had success. They've had success. Since that fulcrum point in history where they could have decided to reboot, which I still think probably is the thing they should have done, but after that, we got Aquaman, which was, generally liked by the critics and the audiences. I thought it was a lot of fun. Made $1 billion. The first DCU movie to make $1 billion. We got Joker, which made $1 billion, won Academy Awards. We got Shazam, which is my personal second favorite movie in the DCU, right behind Man of Steel. I think Shazam's fantastic. And so, we've had good stuff come as a result. It doesn't feel to me like they're wrapping it up. I feel like they had their opportunity to wrap it up if they wanted to. Instead, it feels like Hamada is willing to double down on it and move forward with his new direction. And we'll see how that all sorts of turns out. All right. Dave W. also writes, I know there's an upcoming Flash movie, but I don't think the DCU in general can continue after 2030. Okay. Anyway, before 2030, both Wonder Woman and Aquaman will likely wrap up their trilogy. Man of Steel 2 is either happening within 5 years or not happening at all. Listen, let's be clear about something though, Dave. Let's be very, very clear. Anything beyond 5 years is folly. You got to understand, in Hollywood, 5 years is an eternity. It is an absolute eternity. Forget 2030. 5 years from now is considered an absolute eternity. There's a reason why. Back when it was announced that Disney was going to be buying the Fox assets, that Kevin Feige didn't say, I've got the next 15 years planned out. No, he said, I got my next 5. Because anything beyond 5 is completely folly. So don't ever think in terms of 10 years from now, because the world, for a studio or for a franchise or in general, the world can change in a week or a day or a moment, let alone a year or 5 years or 10. So don't even think about 2030. Don't even think about 2030. Because I'll tell you right, well, nobody else is thinking about 2030 right now. Nobody else is thinking about 2030. Walter Hamada isn't thinking about 2030. Kevin Feige isn't thinking about 2030. Nobody is thinking about 2030. Showrunners often talk about it's good to have certain numbers of seasons planned out for your show, but you don't want to plan too many of them out because then you leave your show no room to breathe. You don't allow, again, I'm trying to remember, it might have been the showrunner for Bones that said this. I can't remember, but basically they were saying planning is good and you should plan up to a point, but you also have to leave room for the show to have a life of its own. Because yeah, you wrote it and scripted it, but once it gets on screen and plays in front of audiences, certain things can become important. Certain things that you thought important become unimportant. And the aspects of the show take on a life of themselves. And that's why they were saying you only plan your show a certain far in advance, because you have to leave that room for its own growth and to be able to react to that growth and plan accordingly. So yes, you plan, but you don't overplan. That's why I think when they talked to Kevin Feige and Feige said, I've got the next 5 years planned out. I've got my blueprint, my roadmap for the next 5 years. There's a reason he didn't say 8 years. There's a reason he didn't say 10 years. There's a reason he didn't say 15 years, because he knows that could be self-defeating. What's the point in making a plan for a movie that's going to come in 7 years when we don't even know what's going to happen with our franchise between now and then? And that could very well become a ridiculous thing to do. He felt comfortable enough making it 5 years. But again, don't even think about, most franchises don't even make it 3 years. So don't worry about 2030 right now. Don't worry about 2030. Let's save that question for another 5 years, shall we, Dave? All right. Thanks for asking though. All right. Again, Dave W. writes, DCU has never had a clear main story like the MCU. It's not important. I feel like wrapping up each trilogy is what they're doing. For example, if we can get a third Wonder Woman movie in 2025, Wonder Woman stories might be over. Gal herself will no longer be young enough after playing Wonder Woman for 10 years. Oh, she'll still be fine. She'll still be fine. But it very well. I mean, the next Wonder Woman, Patty Jenkins has said the next Wonder Woman movie is her final movie. Listen, they just wrapped up Tony Stark. Does that mean the MCU's over? That's the thing about the DC universe. There's hundreds of characters. They'll do certain characters for a certain amount of time. Maybe they'll close off one character story, but then they'll just bring along the next character story. That's what the MCU has done. Right? Okay, Tony and Captain America and Iron Man stories are now wrapped up. So they say. They'll both be back. But what do we got coming? We got She-Hulk now coming. And we got Moon Knight coming. And we got Ms. Marvel coming. And we've got all these things coming. it continues on just because certain pieces of it finish out their part. So again, I think we're getting way ahead of ourselves here, Dave. Let's just let them breathe a little bit. Let's let them breathe a bit. All right, next up, Jake H writes, "Hello, John. Hello, Jake. Been a fan of your show for a while now. Thank you so much. But this is my first time writing in." Well, thank you so much for that, Jake. I appreciate that, man. "I wanted to say thank you for providing me so much entertainment and comfort. You and your show helped me through my anxiety and depression so much. Thank you." Well, thanks for sharing that, man. And listen, again, I know we say this all the time, but it should be said all the time. One of the great things about movies and storytelling on the screen, whether that's movies in the theaters or streaming or series, whatever. The great thing about storytelling on screen is that it allows us not just a break or an escape or an oasis from different things we're dealing with in our real life, but in that oasis that we have a chance to recover, recoup, rejuvenate. Also, the stories that are told can give us inspiration, different perspectives on the world around us and all that kind of stuff. And I've always said this, when we come out of a movie, it's not like our real world issues have disappeared. It's just that they sometimes put us in a better place to deal with those issues in our real world, whether it's just a breath of fresh air and perspective, whether it's inspiration for a new course of action or whatever. And I find that stories on the screen and interacting with the fans, the other fans in our community about those things can provide that as well. And I'm glad that they have been that for you, man. I know they have been that for me, and I'm so glad you had that experience as well. Thanks for writing in, Jake, and thanks for being a part of our community, man. All right, next up. Daniel William writes, "Hey, John. While I'm excited to see the Snyder Cut, I'm just as excited, if not more, to see what Zack has done with Army of the Dead." I was just saying this on my show the other day. Everything that's come out about Army sounds great, and it's going to be fun to see what Zack does outside of the DC universe. What is your take? I said the exact same thing on my show the other day. I said, look, I feel like I know what to expect from the Snyder Cut Justice League miniseries. We have seen several Zack Snyder DCEU iterations. We know what Zack Snyder does in the DCEU. We've seen Man of Steel. We've seen Batman versus Superman. We know what it is he does and what he brings to the table. And therefore, I don't think there's a lot of surprises waiting for us. I'm thinking I'm going to like it, just like I've liked his other ones. Hopefully, I love it the way I love Man of Steel. But even if I don't, even if I just quite enjoy it the way I did Batman versus Superman, that's good enough. What I am truly excited about when it comes to Zack Snyder is Army of the Dead. This looks like it could be just a ball of fun, man. Like a huge ball of fun. He's returning again to a genre he's had great success with. And you know, again, Zack Snyder was never considered a divisive director before DCEU. He's made films that people liked and disliked. That's fine. You can make films that people like and dislike and not be divisive. He was just really considered a really hot director at the time. Whether you're looking at things like 300 or like me, I think his most underrated film is The Legend of the Guardians. Nobody talks about that movie. Maybe it's because it's animated. I don't know. Personally, I think that is a highly, highly underrated, the most underrated Zack Snyder movie to date, I believe. Well, obviously, other than Man of Steel. But to see, this is a movie I'm very excited about. And I'm very, very... I'd say I'm more anticipating this than I am Snyder Cut. So let's see where things go with that. All right. Thanks for writing that in, William. All right. Next up, Britton Tucker writes, "Bills have the better team." Well, they do. And they won their game the other day. "Bills have the better team, but in a one-game playoff, anything is possible. My upset picks is the Colts beating the Bills, which did not happen. They were close though. Colts came close. They had their chances to win that game. They only lost by 3. I think they should hold their heads up high. Anyway, Rivers have a playoff experience and is hungry for one last chance to win in a Super Bowl. All the pressure's on the Bills." I don't know, man. The Bills are pretty young. The Bills are pretty young to say that all the pressure was on them. I don't think so at all. I think Rivers had a lot of pressure on him. Anyway, again, I think they did a fantastic job. I think the Colts played a fantastic game. I think they were right. Nobody picked them to win that game. Nobody picked them to win that game. And they made it a real contest, man. And then we'll see where things go now. All right, next up. B. Wayne writes, John/Rob, Rob's not here right now. I started watching the Pennyworth TV show and I'm hooked. It's based on the young Alfred as an ex-military badass who owns a security firm. Great action and stories with young CIA agents Thomas/Martha Wayne, and they just added scientist Lucius Fox. The Pennyworth show, let me see if I can find this here. Pennyworth was a show I started watching. I started watching Pennyworth when it was Amazon. Okay, so it's an Epix show, and I don't have Epix. But Amazon, I think it was Amazon that was showing like the first 4 or 5 episodes of Pennyworth for free. And then if you wanted to watch more of Pennyworth, you had to sign up for Epix. And I never did sign up for Epix. But I'll tell you what, the first couple of episodes, I loved. And I cannot wait for a chance to watch the rest of Pennyworth. I am just not signing up for another streaming service. Particularly another streaming service that I'm literally only signing up for that service to watch one show. So I'm just going to have to wait until I get another opportunity. But again, I saw the first 4 or 5 episodes. I really did like what I saw. I thought it was coming along very nicely. I enjoyed what I was seeing. And I'm glad you like it, man. I'm glad you like it too. Okay, let's move on here. Next up, Playmaker writes, one of two. Hey, John, and possibly Rob, who's not here right now. I may have missed it, but what MCU Disney Plus show are you most excited for? Yeah, we've talked about that a bunch. I think Moon Knight is going to be wildly different from anything we've seen in the MCU before. And just like Rob, I'm extremely excited. Well, that is obviously the one Rob is most excited about. Like, the moment they announced at D23 that they were doing Moon Knight, I mean, everybody tweeted me, Rob must be happy. That's the one Rob has wanted to see forever. So that's clear. For me, listen, I'm looking forward to a lot of them. I'm clearly looking forward to WandaVision. I cannot wait for Loki. Obviously, Moonlight sounds great. She-Hulk could be very interesting. Ms. Marvel sounds like it could be really good, but it's Falcon and Winter Soldier for me. That's the one I'm most excited about. That's the one that I think has the biggest potential. And I just cannot wait. But again, January 15th is almost here. We're only 5 days away from when WandaVision, the MCU, comes to Disney Plus for the first time in 5 days. Will it be another Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or will it be a Mandalorian kind of experience? I'm thinking it's going to be more Mandalorian kind of experience. I think the promos for WandaVision are great, but the one I'm looking forward to the most is clearly Captain or Falcon and Winter Soldier. Also, do you think that Robert Downey Jr. will make an appearance in Ironheart as Tony Stark AI? That's my best bet on how he returns the MCU. No, I don't, but that is definitely a possibility. We've also had many people write in and ask that. I don't think that's what's going to happen, but it remains as one of the possibilities. All right. Captain Butter writes, what's the point of Kathleen Kennedy announcing Star Wars movies? Jenkins, Waititi, Feige, why not just wait till they have begun shooting? And how can they just pretend like they never announced a Rian Johnson trilogy? I now fear Taika's movie is dead. Well, here's the thing to keep in mind. Taika Waititi's movie is not dead. They are 100% moving forward with that. That's happening. This is the part that a lot of film fans fail to recognize. And this is important. More than half the time that these movies become public knowledge, it's not the studio announcing them. More than half the time, it's one of the big trades that has all the legitimate inside sources and inside and connections and all that kind of stuff, like The Wrap, Hollywood Reporter, Variety, Entertainment Weekly, these sorts of outlets. More than half the time, it's not Star Wars announcing them. It's these outlets discovering them and finding out about them and reporting about them. And the thing is, like you say, why not just announce it once they start shooting? You can't keep that a secret. It's almost impossible. We live in an age, again, I don't have my phone in here with me when I do my show, but let's say this remote control was a cell phone. We live in an age where everybody has a global audiovisual telecommunications device in their pocket. One of these movies literally involves hundreds, sometimes thousands of people that are in the know and know what's going on. And when you have a Variety and the Hollywood Reporter that has deep connections within all of these places, the vast majority of the time, that information's coming out. And so, listen, they wanted to keep Acolyte a secret. They wanted to keep the Acolyte show that they have coming, that's going to be directed by the Russian Dolls showrunner. They wanted to keep that quiet for a while. But what happened? The investigative reporter of Variety found out about it, confirmed it with a couple of sources, and then ran with it as a story. Then people say, why did Disney announce that? Disney didn't announce it. Somebody found out about it, they got it confirmed, and they reported it. Sometimes the studio announces it, like what they did at D20, or not D23, but at the Disney Investor Call meeting. Those were all official announcements. But a lot of the times it's not announcements. It's the major trades finding out about them and then reporting on it. And then sometimes like 4 months later, then the studio makes an official announcement. It's like, yeah, we knew that already. We knew that already because somebody else already reported. But just something important for us to keep in mind. This is almost next to impossible stuff to keep secret. The whole industry is looking at MCU and DC and Star Wars and stuff like that. And they're all looking, and you got to have hundreds, if not thousands of people who are in the know to make these things happen. And there's just a certain percentage likelihood that the major trades are going to find out about it. It just is what it is, man. It is what it is. But do not worry about the Taika one. The Taika one, I am told, it is rock solid. That's happening. The Kevin Feige one is absolutely happening. All the ones they announced at the Marvel or at the Disney Plus Investors Call Day, these are all happening. So I wouldn't worry about those. Yeah, the Rian Johnson one happened. And listen, I was the first one to tell you guys, the Rian Johnson one ain't going to happen. I was the first one to tell you. Nobody believed me. But anyway, yes, that one happened. That one happened. DC has had a dozen or more that were announced, never happened. But again, you got to always make sure to draw that distinction between what is announced versus what got revealed, right? There's a difference there. There's a difference there, Captain Butter. All right, next up. Captain Butter also writes again. Remember Collider Video? I have a vague recollection of that, yes. These days, their videos average about 2,000 views. Each have a disturbing amount of downvotes and negative comments. What would your advice to them be? They lost me as a fan, and now I've turned to the campy side. Well, I appreciate that. I do. But listen, my channel is not here to look backwards. My channel is not here to be a place where we just make random bashing comments about other YouTube channels, even if they're ones I used to work with. Now, yes, was it a year? It's got to be over a year ago, about a year ago now. I made a very blunt video about things that went on at Collider because something had happened that was a direct assault on me and the programming that I created there. And there was clearly a direct assault being made on those things. And in that environment, I decided to speak up. But I don't talk about Collider Video. They are doing what they feel they need to do. There's no point in me giving them advice because they never took any of my advice. Even when I was leaving, I sat down and had a really good conversation with the leadership. And I said, here, listen, this is what I think you need to, now that I'm stepping out, this is what I think you need to do. They never took any of my advice. They just like, sure. What does Campea know? What does Campea know about this stuff? You know, he only took AMC from nothing and made it legitimate things. He only took Collider Video's thing from nothing and made a thing. What does he know? Anyway, so they completely rejected every bit of advice I gave them. So it doesn't matter. But listen, honestly, I hope for good things for them. I'm not just saying that to be polite. I'm not just saying that to be nice. You know, you guys know me. First of all, I'm very close with Dennis Zen. Who I think is just the best guy in the business, and he's still over there. And he's like I have worked with many great people who have been wonderful influences on me and my trajectory in their own ways as well. Dennis Zen, though, I don't know that there's anybody I've ever considered more valuable. There's something about Dennis Zen and how he conducts himself. I learned a lot from Dennis Zen. I really did. And I've learned very much from a lot of people I worked with, from Christian Harloff to obviously John Schnepp. I learned from everybody, from an Amy Rose Eisenbach all the way to Mark Ellis or whatever. I've learned from everybody. I've learned something from everybody that I've worked with. But listen, all I can say about Collider Videos is they are going to find their own way and their own identity and what their thing is going to be about. And listen, they're the head guy, the owner of Collider, Mark Fernandez, and we very publicly kind of buried the hatchet. As a matter of fact, it wasn't long ago that Mark, I think it was, when was it? I think it was a few months ago. Mark just, it was in the midst of all the pandemic crap, and Mark fired me off a text message, just check in to say, hey, hope you're doing good and everything's hanging in there with the pandemic and everything. So I can legitimately say I hope for good for things for them moving forward. But no, there's no point in me giving advice because they would never listen to my advice anyway. So yeah, there's that. Let's see. Where were we? Oh, that was Captain Butter. Thanks for that, Captain Butter. All right. TJR Minnesota writes, big fan of the show. Thank you so much. And first being able to contribute. Thank you so much for that, man. Thanks for supporting the show. A movie that seemed to fly under the radar of 2020 was Buffaloed. It has Zoe Dutch. I never know how to pronounce that properly. I loved her character in Zombieland 2. I did too, as a matter of fact. I know it's unpopular opinion. I like Zombieland. I like Zombieland 2 better than the first Zombieland. I know that's not the popular opinion, but I actually preferred Zombieland 2 to the first Zombieland. That's just my take on things, but whatever. Anyway, 2 of 2. The movie is hilarious and has the feel of a heist movie mixed with The Big Short. I have recommended it to anyone who will listen, and most people have loved it. I hope you get a chance to check it out. I don't think you will be disappointed. All right, let me just bring this up. I'm not even quite sure off the top of my head. I'm not even quite sure which movie we're talking about now. It's a 2019 film. Oh, that also had Jai Courtney and Judy Greer. I like Judy Greer. I like her quite a bit. She is, of course, in Ant-Man, and she is one of the voices in Archer, my favorite animated show of all time. So let's bring this up here. This is the movie Buffaloed, set in the underworld of debt collecting and follows the homegrown hustler Peg Dahl, who will do anything to escape Buffalo, New York, which is kind of funny because I grew up right beside Buffalo, New York. It's because my hometown, Hamilton, Ontario, is like literally a stone's throw from Buffalo. You just cross the border and you're in Buffalo. And it's always funny to hear people in Buffalo talking about wanting to get out of Buffalo. I have no recollection of this movie at all. I'm looking over it. I have no recollection of this movie whatsoever, which is really weird, especially when you consider the cast. The cast sounds pretty good. Directed by Tanya Wexler. Her name sounds familiar. Why does it sound familiar? No, I don't think I saw any of the other things she did. So I don't know why her name sounded familiar. But at any rate, I will keep my eyes open for this one, TJR, and let's see if I come across it. Thanks for the recommendation, man. All right, next up. Joe Hill, tips in $20. Thank you, Joe Hill, for supporting our channel on that level, man. I appreciate that. Hey, John, been a while. Happy New Year. Thank you so much. Happy New Year to you as well. I finally got around to watching Whiplash. Fantastic. Won J.K. Simmons' well-deserved Oscar. By the way, Miles Teller. There's an argument to me Miles Teller should have got nominated too if he didn't. Miles Teller was fantastic in that movie. Anyway, it's been on my list for half a decade. Oh my God, what a pair of performances by Simmons and Teller. Also, Supergirl, she was so good. Best I've seen from her. It is, listen, J.K. Simmons is one of these guys. I first noticed J.K. Simmons, and maybe I should have noticed him before this. I first noticed J.K. Simmons in this, I believe it was an HBO show called Oz, where he played like the leader of the white supremacists in jail. Totally different J.K. Simmons from what we see him in a lot of these other things. But his performance in Whiplash was, I mean, it's just one of those things. It's not just him getting the Academy Award that year was not just a Lifetime Achievement Award. You're like, he finally deserves it. No, he deserved it. And again, Miles Teller, the one unfortunate thing about how good J.K. Simmons is in it is that it makes a lot of people overlook just how good Miles Teller is in it. And because it reminds me a lot of There Will Be Blood, when you had Daniel Day-Lewis in the lead in There Will Be Blood. And I contend the greatest performance ever by a male lead in any movie in Hollywood history. I believe it's Daniel Day-Lewis playing Daniel Plainview in There Will Be Blood. But the problem with that is nobody remembers the Academy nomination worthy performance, in my opinion, of Paul Dano. Paul Dano, you know, for those of you who don't know him, he's the one that he was saying, "I drink up your milkshake." He's the one Daniel was talking to in that scene. Paul Dano, that should have been a career-defining movie for him. He was that good. He did not get an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor, and he totally should have. Anyway, when I think about Whiplash, I really see the similarities there. You have J.K. Simmons giving his kind of Daniel Day-Lewis kind of performance that was so good that the performances also in the movie kind of get overlooked, even though they were ridiculously good as well. And that's how good I thought that I really did think that Miles Teller was in Whiplash with J.K. Simmons. All right, next up, we've got Digital JP792 writes, "Good day, John. Wonder Woman 84 was a good movie, but just wasn't for me. No disrespect to the character or anyone that loved Wonder Woman. Trust me, I love her dearly. Do you think if Wonder Woman were a guy, they would have picked that ending by taking the last boss instead of a fight?" All right, thanks for writing that in. So, I mean, obviously, I didn't like Wonder Woman 84, and I love the first one. Didn't like, I don't think it's a steaming hot pile of garbage like some people make it out to be. I think it definitely had its upside. But yeah, overall, I was disappointed with the film. Whatever. I'm sure Patty Jenkins will come back with a fantastic Wonder Woman 3. I have no doubt about that. But yeah, Wonder Woman 84 didn't work for me. A lot of discussion has been happening about the whole issue of the ending. Like, it's really weird that the fight with Cheetah wasn't the big final fight. It was like just kind of the prelim fight, where she has this short fight with Cheetah and then goes on to Maxwell Lord and really has more of a philosophical, existential battle with Maxwell Lord rather than an actual fight. Let's not pretend that's never happened in other movies before. It has happened in other movies before with male lead action stars. Also, let's not forget that the last Wonder Woman movie was a big fight when she fights Ares at the end, right? So it's not like, oh, so whenever it's Wonder Woman, they just have some little fight. No, and she had multiple battles in this one, so no. I don't think that had anything to do with it personally. I could understand asking why, but really, when you look at the overall context, I don't think that has anything to do with it. I really don't. That's just me personally, though, Digital. Thanks for writing in, man. Next one up. Willow writes, "Do you think that the current release schedule for 2021 will actually hold, or do you expect to still see some significant shuffling? I'm not going to get too excited about new movies when I don't know if they will actually come out this year." I mean, yeah. I mean, that's been the whole COVID experience so far, right? It's like, that's great. You set movie release dates, but can they hold? Here's what I think. I think most of the 2021 slate will hold. Most. But I do believe there will still be some shuffling. I mean, a lot depends on, like we said, we talked about a little bit earlier, President-elect Biden says they're going to try to get, their goal is to have 100 vaccinations done, 100 million vaccinations done in the first 100 days that he's in office. If they can do that, and like by the beginning to mid-April, we've got 100 million vaccinations have been delivered. If that can happen, and that is admittedly a big if, but then if that happens, then we're well on our way. But yeah, I won't be surprised if we still see a few more, but I don't think it's going to be like 2020. I don't think we're going to see 60% of our movies have their release dates upended. I don't think that's the case. I think we're going to see the majority of the 2021 schedule will hold, but I still do think we're going to see some shifts, probably in those earlier movies, but we'll wait and see. Maybe they'll be ahead of schedule. Maybe they'll be behind. Don't know. But I think overall, I think the majority of the year will hold, but who knows? Maybe the vaccines aren't effective. Maybe they only roll out 20 million vaccinations in the first 100 days. I mean, there's a lot of things that are still up in the air, but if things go according to plan, and again, that's always a big if, then I think we will still see some delays, but not a lot. I mean, that's my guess right now, but let's see what happens. Good question, Willow. All right, next up. Campea, Mr. Campea writes, one of two. Whoa. I thought for a second we were going to get the Campea classroom on that interesting question from Hamada's assistant. I ran some research and want your further take. I mean, the movie would have some deep home run elements, sci-fi set in the future. I don't know what we're talking about. Sci-fi set in the future, the bankability of Batman IP, the intrigue of Keaton and new main character, best pitch. Oh, I know, because Mr. Hamada's assistant wrote in about the possibility of a Batman Beyond. Okay. Best pitch analogy is Ex Machina meets Godfather. A dystopian world that could be enhanced by current CGI software and wouldn't be too expensive to make. $100 million Batman Beyond. Again, I don't think you're going to see $100 million Batman Beyond. But again, all that stuff, you could do this and you could do this. Yeah, but you can name any possible movie and say, you could do this and you could do this and you could do that. That's not what makes a movie successful. It's about execution. It's about also brand awareness in some cases. But again, like I was saying a little bit earlier, I think this new, listen, I have said for years, they're not doing a Batman Beyond. They're not doing a Batman Beyond. I've said it for many years and I've been right completely up until now. But now I'm changing my tune. Now that Walter Hamada has come out and said, hey, we're going to try to do 2 feature projects per year on HBO Max for smaller properties that won't have as big of a budget and give it there. That now gives something like Batman Beyond a place to come to fruition and actually find a life on screen. I now think there's a legit possibility that could happen. I said for a while, there's no interest in doing Batman Beyond. The audience doesn't care, blah, blah, blah. And I've been right. But now I think there's an avenue. Now I think there's a way. It's much like when we said forever that, like, no, you're never going to see Snyder Cut in theaters. It's not going to happen. And then once HBO Max started taking off, that's when Rob and I started going, you know what though? HBO Max, that's where they could put Snyder Cut. Snyder Cut is that HBO Max gives it a valid place to go. And what happened? Boom, comes to HBO Max. And I think that same possibility now is there for Batman Beyond. I'm not saying it will happen, but I'm saying it now has a chance that it never had before. Now that Hamada has said, we want to give smaller properties with smaller budget things an outlet, and HBO Max is the place for that. Static Shock's a good one to do. Batgirl's a good one to do. Batman Beyond is a good place to try that. Again, I'm not saying they will, but I'm saying now is a much more valid chance of it than it's ever had before. So that's my guess. All right. Thanks a lot for that, Campea, Mr. Campea. Next up, Rob writes, we need to start meeting new people, John. This is not working out. And by the way, I think I forgot my bat thong yesterday. Anyway, favorite composers. My ranking: number 1, Alan Silvestri. Number 2, John Powell. Number 3, John Williams. Number 4, Hans Zimmer. Number 5, Michael Giacchino. Number 6, Howard Shore. Again, I don't do top lists or anything like that. Really, the only question is who's the second favorite, because the number 1 guy is John Williams. John Williams is, as they call him, he is the maestro of the movies. Every major hummable theme in the history of movies seems to be a John Williams theme. Like, you can hum the bars of almost any John Williams movie. You're right. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, that's Harry Potter. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, that's Jurassic World. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, that's Superman. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, that's Indiana Jones. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, that's the Imperial March from Star Wars. I mean, you go on and on and on and on and on. John Williams is the maestro of the movies. And we've got some tremendous things. While a lot of other people have been on the Hans Zimmer train longer, I've only in the last maybe 2 years been really getting on the Hans Zimmer. I'm appreciating him more and more. Of course, Shore and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, a lot of good stuff out there, Rob. But for me, it starts and ends with John Williams. I mean, to me, that's a no-brainer to me. But anyway, that's my thoughts on that. Thanks for writing that in, Rob. Next up, Lobster Johnson writes, hey, John, one of two. I have come to the conclusion that we will never see a good Superman movie again until Warner Brothers gets their heads out of their ass. I mean, it seems Warner Brothers says yes to anything and anyone with a reputation, good or bad. Kevin Smith, Bryan Singer, now J.J. Abrams. Warner Brothers even offered James Gunn him. James Gunn is great, but not for Superman. Who says who? Anyway, if J.J. Abrams is in fact taking on Superman, I'm scared because J.J. said himself that he is not good at endings. Lucky Snyder made the best Superman movie ever. Bring on the filthy. Well, I mean, first of all, James Gunn's a great director. I've told this story before, and this is true. When I had Kevin Feige in my studio, and I had Kevin Feige, James Gunn, and Chris Pratt, and I looked at Kevin Feige, and I said, listen, I'm a big fan of James Gunn. I mean, if for nothing else, Slither. I mean, Slither to me, that's still James Gunn's best movie. And I love Guardians of the Galaxy. If you have not seen Slither, you got to see Slither. And I said, but what was it? Why would you decide to take this guy who's never made a big budget, high profile film like this and hand him a project like Guardians of the Galaxy? And I'm paraphrasing a little bit. The interview is still up online. You can go find it. But basically what Kevin Feige said was, a good storyteller is a good storyteller. It doesn't matter if he has a $100 budget or a $100 million budget. If somebody knows how to tell stories, that's the person you go with. And I'm here to tell you, James Gunn would make a kick-ass Superman movie. They offered him Superman, by the way. Warner Brothers offered him Superman. Or at least made that one of his options that he could have chose. He would have made a great Superman movie. And I completely believe J.J. Abrams can make a great Superman movie. I loved his Star Trek movies. I love at least one of his Star Wars movies. I love The Force Awakens. I hated Rise of Skywalker, give you that. But he has just made a track record of success. I mean, with some notable failures too, but overall, I think he could do a terrific job with Superman. I really do. He could also do a terrible job, but that's true of any director you could put in there. Any director without the last name Spielberg could do a great job, could do a bad job. And certainly JJ might do a bad job, but listen, I think he's a pretty good choice. Would he be number one on my list? Probably not. But I feel very comfortable with JJ, despite the fact that I thought Rise of Skywalker was maybe probably the worst non-prequel Star Wars movie ever made. And maybe even Revenge of the Sith, which is a prequel movie, might even be better than it. I'm not ready to go there yet, but we'll see. But yeah, listen, Warner Brothers just made a great Superman movie with Man of Steel not so long ago. Granted, not everybody loved it. I understand that. We're not going to have this whole discussion again. I get that. But yeah, well, we'll see where they go. Listen, I actually have a lot of belief in J.J. Abrams. I do. He is not my favorite director, but I think that he's got as good of a shot at making something really epic with that character as anybody does. So let's see where we go. And listen, it can't be any worse. I mean, I guess Rise of Skywalker says it could be, but honestly, it can't be much worse than the reception Man of Steel got, right? Which I think is the most underrated comic book film of all time. But whenever I say it, I still get throngs of people yelling at me that I don't know what I'm talking about, that Man of Steel sucks. That's fine. You think that if you want, but I think it's great, but we'll see how it goes. I still think there's a lot of potential there, Lobster. So hang tight, man. Keep the faith. Keep the faith. All right. Next up, Diego Meg Uino writes, "Hey, John. I'm rewatching the X-Men series on Disney Plus, and I love it. I remember those shows so much. Anyway, saw it as a kid, so feels like the first time. There's plenty of time travel, Apocalypse, Cable, Bishop. I know you're not a fan of time travel, but did you like it in this show? And was Magneto your favorite character?" I don't think Magneto was my favorite character in the animated series. I mean, Wolverine was probably my favorite character in the animated series. Versus the time travel stuff, it doesn't really count to me because it was animated. I'll let animated get away with a lot more. Now, again, I generally don't like time travel as a plot device because it's a lazy man's plot device. It's a lazy writer's plot tool. Because there has literally never been any problem created in any movie that can't be solved with time travel. It's true. Name one regular movie anywhere whose main problem couldn't have been fixed with a quick time travel plot device. Simple. To me, it is a lazy man's device. You don't need any creativity. Now, that said, there are movies that utilize time travel that I really love. Obviously, there's the Back to the Future, at least the first one. There's Star Trek, The Voyage Home, the one where they go back to get the whales. That was used in a fantastic way. I mean, there have been times that time travel has been used with great effect. I just generally don't like it as a starting point. But anyway, with the animated stuff, I usually give almost anything in animation a pass. Like, honestly, I do. Maybe that's fair. Maybe that's not fair. But that's kind of the way I see it. But yeah, I'd say probably Wolverine was my favorite character in the animated one. All right, next up. The Wakandan Forever writes, what have I become? Ever since I was a kid, I've been pulled to the dark side. Lord Vader for decades has been my all-time favorite Star Wars character. Mandalorian with Luke's return and a Baby Yoda has me conflicted. Light versus dark, the struggle is real. Well, I mean, but that highlights something, right? The fact that it's not about evil characters or good characters or neutral characters or whatever. It's just good characters. Good characters attract us. We want good characters in our heroes, obviously, but we want great characters in our villains as well. Whether you're looking at a Hannibal Lecter or Hans Gruber or Darth Vader or Thanos or whatever, we're just looking for good characters. When you populate your movie with good, interesting, multi-layered characters that create an impact, that create an impression, characters that create an experience, because after all, like to me, at any rate, movies are experiential events. When you populate your movie with those characters, you're off to a head start. You're off to a big head start. And I think that's a great example of that, Wakandan. All right, next up. Wakandan also writes, superheroes are my all-time favorite. Black Panther and Superman are two of my favorite characters of all time. But I have to say, in the last year, Star Wars has become my second favorite franchise all time. I got my first Baby Yoda figure. He is now number 3. And listen, you can't, we joke about it a lot, right? We joke about it a lot. The impact of Mandalorian and Baby Yoda particularly. But it's actually true. Baby Yoda swept the world. Baby Yoda swept the world. A lot of people watched the Mandalorian premiere and were enjoying it, and then the end happened. Mandalorian Season 1, Episode 1, you get to that ending, and we have revealed to us Baby Yoda. And everything exploded after that. That became the ultimate moment where people who were watching and liking it now were converting to evangelists and telling everybody they knew, you got to watch this. Telling people they knew that weren't even Star Wars fans, no, you got to see this. I know, I don't mean to sound like I'm enforcing a gender stereotype here. I am just telling you the facts of my experience. I have at least 4 women in my life who are not like avid Star Wars followers. The moment Baby Yoda hit their screen, that's it. They were all in on Mandalorian after that. You cannot emphasize enough. Now, you're going to have some hardcore, staunch Star Wars fans. They're saying, oh, it was more than Baby Yoda. And of course it was more than Baby Yoda. But no, it still would have been as big as it was, even if it was for Baby Yoda. No, I got news for you. No, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't. Newsflash, it wouldn't have been as big. And the people at Lucasfilm know that. That's why, like, Baby Yoda's on everything. And that's why Baby Yoda will be back in Season 3. But yeah, I mean, you cannot sell short what that did to explode, like take a big success thing like that, Episode 1, but it wasn't until that end that it became a phenomenon. And after that, it just all rolled, man. All right, next up. Tony Cooper writes, you still get questions about subjectivity of art. I do. I still think people need to remember that widespread consensus is still different from empirical proof. Yes, widespread consensus is simply a collection of subjective opinions. A collection of subjective opinions does not make an objective fact. Here's what you can say is an objective fact. If you do a poll of 1,000 people and say 82% of people surveyed like that movie, well, that is an objective fact. 82%, that is a measurable metric of people like that movie. That does not then mean that the movie itself is therefore objectively good. No, you just got a collection of subjective opinions. That's all it is. And you're right. That's an excellent point. A collection of subjective opinions does not create an objective truth other than the result of that collection of objective opinions. But the object of those opinions does not become an objective factor. So well put, Tony. Well put. Let's see. Next up, Champagne Poppy 51 writes, "Hey, John. First time commenter. Thank you for writing in, Pappy. Been watching you since the AMC days. Have you read any of the Marvel Vader comics? I've actually got it right. You can't see it. It's just out of screenshot right over there. Yes, they're legit. Definitely don't think they need to make a movie out of the plot early Vader days, but they do answer a few questions. No, listen, the Vader stuff, whether it's Vader Down or the other stuff, is some really, really good stuff out there. Again, I wouldn't personally, and this is coming from a guy who I think Vader's the greatest screen villain of all time. We don't need a Vader movie. We don't need a Vader show. And again, that is coming from a lover of the character. But if you do, and I'm glad you're bringing it up, Champagne, if you're somebody, a Star Wars fan out there, that you got a bit of a hunger for some Vader stuff, oh my God, there is some excellent Vader comic stuff out there. Absolutely excellent Vader stuff out there. Again, I'm just looking back at it right now. And so take Champagne's advice, go check it out, and I think you will be satisfied. I think you will be satisfied. I know I am when I read it. Good to hear from you, man. Thanks for writing that in. All right, Russell Amador writes, "Hey, John. Next Friday on HBO Max, the film Lockdown comes out starring Anne Hathaway and Chiwetel Ejiofor. Is this movie on your radar? This may be our first real-life quarantine heist, and anything that has Hathaway, I'm on all board for. I'm all on board for." There you go. That's what you're trying to say. Yeah, I am very much a fan of, let me bring up. I am very much a fan of Anne Hathaway. I am a huge fan of Chiwetel Ejiofor. Like, I've been riding the Chiwetel Ejiofor train ever since he was the operative in Serenity. And he would have had an Academy Award on his mantle were it not for being out in the same year that Matthew McConaughey did Dallas Buyers Club. If Dallas Buyers Club wasn't in that year, Chiwetel Ejiofor has a Best Acting Academy Award on his mantle. This is set during the pandemic. A couple attempts, a high-risk, high-stakes jewelry heist at a department store, right? So you've got me on a couple of levels. Number one, not to mention Sir Ben Kingsley's in it, so that's a win there too. So number one, you got Anne Hathaway. I think she's one of the best actresses in the business. I love her. She kills it even in bad movies. She kills it. Number two, Chiwetel Ejiofor. I think he is the top. He's on the top shelf A-list best actors in the world right now. If you're going to have a conversation about 6, 7 of the best actors in the world right now, I think Chiwetel Ejiofor is one of them. So you got that working for it as well. You got Doug Liman directing it. Now, not everything he does is gold, clearly, but he's got a lot of wins under his belt. Then for me, it's a heist movie. I am a sucker for heist movies. So there's that. I'm not going to lie, though, and say, like, this is one I've been counting down the days to, because they haven't been marketing this movie much. And when you're getting down to the days, literally the days before it comes out, and you're still not seeing much marketing, it makes me wonder how much belief there is in the property, but it doesn't matter. I am looking forward to seeing this. I can't wait to watch it because of all that. So yeah, I'm excited about it. All right. Next up, let's see. That was Russell Amador. Glenn writes, where do we go? Glenn writes, "Hi, John. Talking about Sony as the only major studio without streaming services, have you heard of Bravia Core, a new service exclusive, at least initially, to 2021 Sony TV models? What do you think about its prospect, and what do you think about the name?" Never heard of it. Never heard of it. I do know apparently that the new Sony TVs are also, or was it Samsung TVs? Hold on a second. I have no idea what Bravia Core is. I think it's the Samsung TVs are all going to start coming out with Google TV built in, which is great because I have a Chrome TV with Google TV built in, and I've been a Roku user for almost a decade. It's now my favorite streaming platform, this Google one. But Bravia Core, I really don't know what Bravia Core is. I'm looking at it right now. Bring the cinematic experience home. Enjoy movies included with Bravia XR. Huge number of movies are included and waiting for you with Bravia XR technology, pure stream and IMAX enhanced. Everything you watch is delivered with stunning visuals and experiential sound. And Bravia Core, again, I'm not even sure what Bravia Core is. Choose from hundreds of the latest releases, classic blockbusters. Is this a subscription service? I have no idea. This is a new one to me. I'll tell you what, I will look into this a little bit more and maybe we'll be able to talk about it more in a future days, but I haven't been keeping up on whatever Bravia Core is, to be honest with you. So I'm glad you're putting it on my radar. Thanks so much for that, Glenn. I will keep my eye on it and I will read a little bit more into it and see what it actually is for us. Thanks for putting it on my radar, man. I appreciate that. All right. Next up, SpeedNet tipped in $50. Thank you so much, man, for supporting our channel on that level, dude. I appreciate that. SpeedNet writes, "Hey, John, I wanted you to know how much I appreciate you and your channel. You are a true professional." That's up for debate. "You're a true professional and you deserve all the success you've had and is still to come. Congrats to you and Ann on the new house." Well, thank you so much, man. I appreciate that so much. Yeah, Ann and I have bought a house. We're moving at the end of the month. Right now we have renovation crews over there renovating the house to make it, the house we want it to be. We just were there yesterday and we love the progress. It's not a huge house. It's not a huge house. It's bigger than what we're in right now, but it's certainly not what you would consider like a really big house. It's like a 3-bedroom house, but we personally love it. And it's the first home we've ever bought and we're so excited. And I still don't know what my studio is going to look like. I know where we're doing it. We got a big driveway, so we don't need a garage. So we are converting the garage. The crew just started working on this part of the renovation yesterday. We're converting the garage into my studio space. And I still don't know what it's going to look like from your perspective. Seriously, I may get in there and it may look exactly like it does now. You may see, I think I'm going to change out my background. I think I am, but you never know. I might get in there and say, you know what? No, just keep the background. From your perspective, it might end up looking exactly the same. I might want to go a little bit more minimalistic and have nothing in the background. Just a wall. Just a wall and maybe still have a monitor to have graphics up on, but maybe go a little bit more minimalistic. I don't know yet. Still working on it, but we are very excited. Like I said, it's the first home we've ever bought. We've wanted to buy a home for years, but we wanted to buy a home right in LA proper, but it's so expensive. It's so expensive. And we could find houses that we could afford barely, but those houses would be smaller than most apartments and really run down and maybe not in the best areas and all that kind of stuff. So we finally decided, now that Ann works at home too, she gets to do her job with Amazon from home, which is great. So now that we both work at home, we decided we could look a little bit outside of LA. And so we're out in Riverside. It's only it's less, when the traffic's right, it's less than an hour outside of LA. So it's still going to be easy for us to get in and out of LA when we want to. But the price difference is insane. The price difference is insane. The house that we're getting, we minimum would have been paying minimum $250,000, maybe $300,000 more if we stayed in the LA area. And that's just something we couldn't afford before. And now we do. I can't wait to show you guys some more pictures of the place now that the renovations are starting to come around and we're moving in less than 3 weeks. We're very excited. Anyway, thank you so much, SpeedNet, for contributing to our show. Thanks so much for that and being a part here. And thank you for your well wishes on the house. And we are very, very excited. We're very excited. First time homeowners here. So we're very kind of pumped about that. All right, next up. Call of Duty God writes in and tips in $20. Thank you, man, for supporting the channel on that level, dude. Appreciate that. He writes, "Hey, John, congrats on your new home." Thank you so much for that, man. I appreciate that. Over under 50% that you did some research on location, time there and back. Let me try this again. Over under 50% that you did some research on location, time there and back, and what kind of theater was in the vicinity before you said yes on buying it? And if so, what theaters are around there? Congrats again and enjoy. Oh yeah, you got to know I got to have a theater relatively close. Now, I knew I was never going to be able to find a place. Like right now, I live right in the heart of Burbank. I literally have one of the greatest movie theaters in the country, the AMC Burbank 16, literally a 10 to 12 minute walk, not drive, walk from my house. It's great. And I love downtown Burbank. I knew I was never going to be able to find that, but there is a wonderful movie theater right in Riverside called the AMC Tyler 16. The AMC Tyler. And I think it's a 16. Maybe it's a 14. Whatever. It's the AMC Tyler Galleria in Riverside. And because Anne's mom lives out there and her brother lives out there, we're out there a lot anyway. So we've gone to a lot of movies at that theater. Actually, I've run into some of you guys. Every time we go to the AMC Riverside, the Tyler Galleria out there in Riverside, I have inevitably at least a couple people come up and say hi. It's always great to run into people there. Can't wait for us to get back in the theaters and I get to meet more of you guys again. But it's a wonderful movie theater. Not quite the AMC Burbank 16, but it is a wonderful movie theater. And that is close by. It's beautiful. The backyard. Let me see if I can bring this in here. I'm not totally sure I can. Let me see if I can. I've shown this picture before, but maybe I can bring it in. The backyard of the house is amazing. Now, ignore the ugly railing lattice there that you see, that we're replacing the deck. All that guardrail ugly lattice, that's all been torn out. It's a brand new deck that's being built in there. It sits above a golf course. So we have these beautiful views of mountains, and off in the distance, you have the city lights, and it's all trees and grass in the backyard. Like I said, we sit about 20 to 30 feet above our backyard deck over the golf course. It's just a beautiful, I can just see myself with, a nice table and chair out there on the deck with my laptop, doing some work, maybe with the distant sounds of the city and seeing the sun setting over the mountains and all that kind of stuff. I am very excited. And again, like the Tyler Galleria AMC Mall is probably only about maybe a 10-minute drive away. Maybe like a 10-minute drive away. Now I'll show you what the backyard looks, just because I'm excited about the house. So this is a before picture, all right? This is a before picture of the backyard, and you're only seeing a part of the backyard. It goes further off that way. It goes a little bit further out the other way too. Big barbecue area and stuff like that as well. And again, you see the deck here, but that's being all replaced with this gorgeous new deck and everything. And I just look so forward to being able to sit out there. And this is nothing we ever could have afforded in LA. I mean, we never could have afforded something like this in LA, but it's just funny how much further your money stretches when you're willing to move a little bit outside of the main city area. And that's since, we're not rich, that's what we had to do. We had to move to where our money stretched further. But we're very excited about it. And yeah, we are very familiar because, like I said, that area is where Anne's mom and brother live. We actually lived out there right when we first got married. We lived out in Corona. When we first got married, we had a house out there that we rented. And then we moved into LA. So we're very familiar with how long it takes to go back and forth. And that Tyler Galleria theater is there. So, yep, that all figured into our decision-making process. Absolutely it did. All right. Last question of the day, guys, comes to us from Sergeant Ward, who writes, "Hey, John, I feel like Michael Bay doesn't get enough credit. He's so good at creating chaos, and when someone tries to rip off his style, it's 10 times worse than him. P.S. We forget his greatest work, the Got Milk commercial." Well, listen, to be honest, I've said this before. I will defend Michael Bay. Yes, Michael Bay has made some terrible stuff. I'm not denying that he has, but we all know that. But what everybody ignores is the truly fun, great cinema he's created. And I don't care what anybody says. I love Armageddon. I think Armageddon's a guilty pleasure of mine. I love Armageddon. I absolutely love The Rock. The Rock is awesome with Sean Connery, Nicolas Cage. It is utterly fantastic. I love The Rock. It's great. His Pain and Gain movie was pretty damn good. The first Transformers movie, I contend, was really good. I really enjoy the first Transformers movie. The point is that whenever Michael Bay comes up, and I get it, we all kind of focus on the shortcoming stuff. I get it. But people just conveniently leave out of the conversation the big hits he's had that have been legitimately good. So I'll tell you what, I don't get excited about the next Michael Bay movie, but I'm also not one of these people that would go or snicker at the idea of the next Michael Bay movie. I'm in. Whatever movie he does, I'm in. Maybe it'll be great. Maybe it won't be great, but he is a director like any others. He has some losses on the record, but he's got some wins too. And the wins he has, I've really enjoyed. So yes, I think Michael Bay gets a little bit of a bad rap. Some of it deserved. Transformers 2, Transformers 3, Transformers 4. Some of it deserved, but some of it not. And so I'm with you on that. All right, listen, still more to go, but these all came in after the last episode. So we'll pick up on these on the John Campea Show tomorrow, from Salvation, Preston the Kryptonian, Mischievous Gremlin, and on. We will start with your questions when we get to the live comments and questions part of the John Campea Show tomorrow. And that will do it for us here today now, guys, for this installment of the companion videos. Thank you so much to all of you who sent in the questions, because number one, you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel while you did it. And all of us, from me, Rob, Ray, on and on, all of us here involved with the channel, thank you guys very much for your support. All right, guys, that will do it for me for this installment of the John Campea programming stuff companion video. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.